Oh no, the microphone, you gotta turn that on. What is up, guys, and welcome here to the Daily Quest number 11. And today we're talking about a little guy named Chen Stormstout. Now, before we get into that, we have to remember that today is St. Patrick's Day, and there is no better day to brew. That is what Chen Stormstout really excels at. He's good at brewing, and he brews a lot of, he's a brewmaster, he's a brew drinker. He does it all. Now, Lily, she does have her cups, and she could even give you 10,000 cups, and that's great. But can she handle 10,000 cups? Only Chen can handle the 10,000 cups. So that's why we're talking about him here on St. Patrick's Day. Now, speaking about Chen, he happens to be a warrior hero in Heroes of the Storm. He's been through a few different phases in his career. Chen He's had times where he was considered to be a little bit broken. He's had times where he's considered to be a little bit irrelevant. And we're going to take a look at his kit in the current version of the closed beta. Now, looking at Chen, we can switch over to his abilities. Look at the about. And his trait is simply Fortifying Brew. Instead of mana, power your abilities by drinking brew. Alda has subscribed. Alda, thank you for once again subscribing. Instead of mana, power your abilities by drinking brew. Gain a shield while drinking. So you literally hit D, you drink that beer, and that gives you shields, and it also restores your mana. On top of that, you've got the flying kick, that's his Q. You've got the keg smash, and you have the breath of fire. All of these abilities have a 5-second cooldown. So his rotation is very simple. You just fill up your brew, fill up your mana bar, and then you go in and you use all three abilities typically. And of course, the fact that you can use Flying Kick to really approach the enemy, he's very hard to get away from. And he's constantly generating shields by drinking that brew to restore the mana, so he's very hard to kill. Now, back in the day, Storm, Earth, and Fire was really the way to go. Once you hit R, it was not interruptible, and you were invincible during the cast, like during the frames where you cast it, because there was 0 cast time. You just hit R, he starts to slowly transform and pop out as 3 other pandas. They've since nerfed it and now has a cast bar which can be interrupted, and as a result, it's kind of been pooped on. It's kind of been pooped on. We don't really see it anymore. Storm, Earth, and Fire is just kind of booty tier. But what we do see is the barrel, the wandering keg, and you jump into a barrel and you knock back enemies. Now, once upon a time, the wandering keg would provide shielding. But that it's no longer the case. It simply just makes you roam around and you can interrupt anything with it. So every time you knock back an enemy, you deal a little bit of damage, but you also interrupt them. So it's pretty good for displacement. We see some pretty cool uses like stealing mercenary camps and other things of that sort. But let's take a look at a modern day Chen build. Now, Chen builds have changed quite a bit over time. If you look at a video that dates back maybe even over a month, Chen's his tier list was way different. They moved a lot of talents around recently, and this is kind of a new style this is a new very tanky style that we're starting to see out of Chen players. Now, Chen has been popular in Europe for a decent amount of time, but he's only really been starting to be dabbled with here in North America. Now, we've seen Murloc's Ink play with him a little bit, and now we have Tempo Storm with Glaurung being their tank, who recently switched over from Flex to tank. He was running Chen last week for Cloud and Maelstrom, and that's actually the games that we're looking at. And this is one of the builds we end up seeing. And you'll notice Regen Master is a level 1 talent. Now, Regen Master isn't picked up by really a lot of tanks in the game, because there's usually other options that just end up being superior in a lot of ways. But the thing about Regen Master that makes a lot of sense is that since you're constantly generating the shields with a D, the Regen Master is also regenerating your health during that. So this is, of course, empowered by globes. It's the healing version of Conjurer's Pursuit. Instead of mana, it's health regeneration. So Regen Master is what we're going to see in these games, at least at level 1. And you can look at the other options. Consuming Fire, that gives you a little bit more burst. You have the full keg that increases the duration of your slow, which is very good, of course. And you have the Bottomless Mug, which increases your maximum brew. Of course, this allows you to get in their face a little bit more often, maybe use that Fly Kick 1 extra time, which is nice, but considering all of his abilities, including his trait, are 5 seconds, I don't find this to be a very valuable trait. So, Bottomless Mug, good option. If you're trying to be more bursty, maybe you can try playing it with Consuming Fire or Consuming Flame, and of course the full keg. We definitely have seen that used in the past. Now, looking at 4, he's got a few good options. Now, Amplified Healing, you can never count this out. If you've got multiple healers on your team, you have those healing wards on your team, say that you're running a composition that has Tassadar and Tyrande, and then you also have like an Uther and a Rhaegar, Amplified healing might be great because, of course, it's just 30% additional healing, and that healing also comes from globes, comes when you tap the well, comes from everything. But Swift Reflex is that every 4 seconds you can dodge an enemy hero's basic attack, so this just makes him tanky, especially if you're facing a Hammer, a Vala, maybe there's an Illidan. This is kind of a compositional thing. Facing a lot of casters, probably want to go with Amplified Healing, but a lot of auto attack damage on the enemy's team, Swift Reflex is definitely worth considering. And looking at the other talents, the Deadly Strike. This gives you more burst. Definitely more worthwhile than speccing into Deadly Strike than it is to burst into something like Consuming Flame, simply because of how strong the Regeneration Master can get. So Chen's really interesting to the point where a lot of his talents are totally viable. Now the build that we see selected here, again, that's the build we see in one specific game with Glaurung, but he does change it between games. And Deadly Strike is one of the talents that we do actually see out of Glaurung. And then Deep Breath, the range and the arc of Breath of Fire is increased by 30%. Probably wouldn't waste my talent point on this, considering the other options we have available. Moving down to level 7, we've got the Keg Toss that increases the range. That's cool, 125%. That gives you a ridiculous cast range to throw that keg. Neat, but I don't know. Ring of Fire, after using Breath of Fire, you have a Fire Aura. Cool. Combat Stance. The shields from Fortifying Brew last an additional 2 seconds. Also cool, but what I really like this talent is the Brew Master's Balance. When you're at or below 50 brew, you gain a 20% movement speed. But if you're above 50 brew, you gain additional 10 health per second. This is a really cool, really interesting talent that requires a little bit of brew management, if you will. But on top of that, it gives you this utility. 20% movement speed on the ground is insane. You can run or chase anything, and you can actually just spend your brew. You don't actually need enemies in front of you to throw out the keg and then throw out the Breath of Fire. You can just use it and then get your brew down below that threshold of 50, and then chase with the additional 25% movement speed. And then you just make sure you try to make sure you have the additional mana to use that flying kick, and then you fly in onto your target. Then you start drinking again, and suddenly your restoration is going up extra health per second. But when you pair Regen Master and you pair the Brewmaster's Balance, the amount of health regen Chen starts to get, especially with that extra shielding, becomes a bit ridiculous. Looking at 10, Storm, Earth, and Fire, also known as Panda Palace, has really fallen off the map. The ability, like I said, it can now be interrupted. He is now vulnerable when he casts it, and he can't use it in your face, so you kind of have to use it to approach. You have to use it in the bush, and then you leap in on the fight, and its duration is not really all that long. 15.15 seconds? Why is it 15.15? I don't know. But Wandering Keg, on the other hand, has picked up a lot of has a lot of promise, and it's really picked up a lot of popularity recently. Now, this is an ability that is really hard to use effectively as a new player. If you're not familiar with the control on the barrel, you could probably save your enemies more often than to kill them. But once you master this ability, it provides so much zoning and so much control over the battlefield, and you can very easily separate one member from the enemy team. You can flying kick in, pop the barrel, then just displace 1 or 2 members of the enemy team and have your allies blow them up. And you can do cool things like stealing a boss using it. You just pop in with a flying kick onto the cap point as they finish the boss, and you steal it. And again, we'll see examples of that moving forward today. Level 13, there's the Brew Strike. Hitting a Brew Soak target makes a flying kick reduce your cooldowns. Cool, that's nice. A touch of Honey increases the slow. I mean, that's 40% slow is really nice, so it's not bad. Enough to share. This makes it so that you shield around you. Definitely has a lot of potential. We've seen this used in the past, but a lot of the times when there's a lot of stuns in the enemy team, and one thing that Chen really struggles from is diving in and then being stunned, because the way that Chen is shielded is by drinking his brew, right? That's how he stays alive, is he sits there and he drinks, and he's immobile while drinking. Well, the counter to this is to stun him when he tries to drink, and if you're stunned for a long period of time, you become very vulnerable. So Relentless is a very good reactionary talent to grab, because it reduces the duration of all stuns and roots against you. So this makes him a little bit less vulnerable to things like Uther and just stuns in general. So it's definitely worth considering picking up, and it makes Chen just, he can get out of a lot of spots where otherwise he would be completely just blown up, because he can't sit there and drink his brew if he's stunned. Looking at 16, You've got the combination attack, and again, if you're going a bursty style, if you pick up something like Deadly Strike, you could pair combination attack with that. That makes him a little bit more bursty because you get that 50% extra damage from the flying kick, and then from your next melee attack, you get the 100% bonus damage from that. So suddenly you're hitting way harder when you approach, and if your team's looking for a little bit more damage, those are probably the talents you're going to change up. You're probably going to swap out the Swift Reflexes, pick up the Deadly Strike, and then you're going to pick up the combination attack instead of Pressure Point. Now, before we get to Pressure Point, we can look at Chug. This increases the rate in which you generate your brew. This used to be a much earlier talent, used to be level 4. They've moved a lot of the good talents to 16 because of how strong Chen was. And again, the rate at which you increase and get your brew is nice. This allows you to just kind of be more annoying and in their face more often. But Pressure Point is a 90% root for a second. So this is kind of like having an Earthgrass totem every 5 seconds when you fly in and use that kick. And it's just the amount of control and the amount of presence you have in someone's face. It makes Chen very scary because having a panda fly at you with his foot in your face is scary enough, but having a 90% root on top of it, pretty darn good. And the last one is Boulder Flavor. That's the shield generation count, gives you larger maximum. Probably, I mean, it's not terrible. There's a lot of good talents on Chen, but I think the utility of the Pressure Point or the damage from combination attack is what you're going to end up going for 9 times out of 10. When you get to 20, the untapped potential is actually ridiculous. The 2 additional seconds, it probably sounds like nothing. Like, what's the point? 2 extra seconds? But you gain an extra 5% movement speed whenever an enemy is hit up to 100%. So every time you smack into an enemy, you get faster and faster and faster and faster to the point where the barrel gets comically fast. And it might be hard to control, but it's actually very powerful, and the amount of utility you can actually get out of it is really, really good. But it's hard to resist the Hardened Shield. That's, again, the massive damage taken reduction. It says minus 24%, but I'm pretty sure that's just a 75% damage reduction for 4 seconds. Heroes Nexus, their wording here is a bit weird, but the in-game wording would say 75% damage reduction for 4 seconds. And Bolt of the Storm also just giving you that crazy mobility. So that's kind of like the different styles of Chen. Hopefully I didn't ramble too much on it, but there's a lot of like viable things that you can do with Chen that's really cool, and we're going to take a look at one of the replays that we actually have from last week's matches in the ESL Major League. Now this was Tempo Storm versus Cloud9, if I'm not mistaken, and the matches, or was it Barrel Boys? I think it was Barrel Boys, and I'm actually completely confusing myself, but we're going to find out. No, it was Cloud9 because this happened in the Ding It Invitational. Yes, I cast so many different tournaments that sometimes I get them mixed up, and this happened over on Ding It TV in the Ding It Championships. This was the Grand Finals, where we saw Tempo Storm actually running this interesting composition. So just kind of running through the comps really quick. On the side of Cloud and Maelstrom, it was ETC. Ooh, probably change that C. Yes, ETC playing. Played by King Caffeine. Biceps will be playing as Lily. Dunk Train playing as Tassadar. iDream will be on Illidan, and then K1 Pro playing Jaina. Now, K1 Pro, the first and only player in competitive Heroes of the Storm to ever say that I'm a Jaina main. And his Jaina is very strong. But on the other side, it's going to be Arthlon of the Lost Vikings. Dreadnought playing Rhaegar. Glaurung, he's now their tank. They've swapped their roles around a bit. He's playing Chen in this game, and that's our focus. KO on Zagara, and Soldier playing Vala. Now, Glaurung, typically Chen is a solo laner. Chen is arguably the best solo laner in the game. He's up there. I wouldn't say he's the best. It's hard to say who's the best. There's a lot of situational things. But yes, Chen is very, very good. And there is a comment in the chat from Rackham. Is this a replay? Yes, this is a replay from last week's tournament. So Glaurung will sit there and drink his brew, and that provides the shielding. You'll look at the blue part of his health bar, that shields. Pretty simple, pretty easy, right? But that also restores his mana. You see how quickly he just casts the abilities. He uses his W and then his E to get all the AoE on the enemies, and then he just restores his mana and takes 0 damage in the process. Now, the reason he uses the W before the E every single time is because that then soaks the targets with beer, essentially. And when you soak them in beer, they take additional damage from the fire. You can ignite them. So, you ignite them with those flames. WE, ignite all the enemies, and then you just keep on going on. So Glaurung's going to keep doing this, keep being obnoxious, and he's just going to solo this lane like a boss. Looking across the map, soldiers just kind of hanging out the bush, and in the top lane, we can see the members here of Maelstrom just doing their best to push that back, but KO is going to be absolutely obnoxious on Zagara, and Zagara with her creep spread. This is potentially going to be a creep build. I don't remember exactly, but Reconstitution's kept at level 1. That's additional health regen whenever she's standing on creep, so KO is going to go out of his way to stand on creep as much as possible. iDream has now rotated down to the bottom lane to contest Glaurung, but you'll just see, he's always drinking. This guy has stamina of a boss. Like, Chen could drink for days, and that barrel doesn't actually run out either, and I need to get myself one of those. But iDream doesn't care. His focus is farming, and this is kind of one of those uncommon situations where farming actually becomes a thing in Heroes. Early game farming is a thing on most maps for Heroes of the Storm, but there's definitely, you know, groups of heroes that try to roam around and gank. The tanks, not so much, and Illidan, not so much either, because they're just going to be battling it out the best they can, and he's able to get through the shields just a little bit, and of course the self-sustain available on Illidan rivals the sustainability available on Chen Stormstout. And you see he's applying a little bit of aggression in the first tribute of the game, spawning here in the bottom of the map. Now Glau going to do his best to just keep bullying him back, just keep pushing him back. He did in fact tap the well, but he's just going to drink as soon as iDream comes in, and we can see the rotation happening. Caffeine will be the first one to make his way down to this bottom lane. But Arthlon leaving one Viking at the top. Zagara making her way down there slowly, the other two Vikings making their way, so the rotation is happening. Glaurung is down here with Dreadnought, and that lightning shield is going to provide additional damage, and of course that healing ward going to be obnoxious. Notice Dread was kind of standing on top of it, but until he got bullied back by ATC, yes, the healing ward only takes one auto attack to knock it down and destroy it. During all this, though, one Viking remaining from Arthlon, two Vikings in the middle. Temple Storm, they have that soak in all three lanes. I can't emphasize enough at how crucial soaking is, because you're going to see that if this tribute is drawn out, they're going to push forward further and further and further in terms of levels. iDream has to rotate back as that Hydra did a good amount of damage, so he falls back. We've got this nice double ward placement on the map, and iDream is getting really low, but the shields come out just in time, and K1 Pro manages to grab that tribute. Glau very low, the Blizzard connecting with him, but the allies are pulling him back. But still, I mean, even though the tribute was won, the experience is totally in favor of Temple Storm because of this lost Viking pressure in the top and middle lane, and they lost no one. Actually, if you look at the kills, it's 1 kill in favor of 0.25 kills, so that means one lost Viking has died, and on the side of Temple Storm, no one has died. I just realized the voices are disabled, and I want to hear the sweet voice actor on Cursed Hollow, and that will fix that. But yeah, Arth just going to keep being an Olaf in the top lane. We got the other Vikings making their way in, and Chen is just going to continue to soak for a while. So at this point, after the tribute, we can just fast forward a little bit till we get to the second tribute of the game. Chen gets real interesting, a lot more interesting as the game proceeds. Now, looking at his build, we talked about this before the game started, but Regen Master level 1, Deadly Strikes at level 2, that's again, this is a more bursty style than actually even showed you. So this is that more bursty version of the potential style you can go with. And then he goes for Brewmaster's Balance again at level 7. So sustain a little bit of extra damage because he doesn't have to worry about a lot of stuns in the enemy team. It's really just stuns that come out of ETC, and then of course, Brewmaster's Balance, that's the real flexibility that is picked up on Chen. Now, all of this action happening in the top, we missed out on a little bit, and both teams are making their way to level 10. Temple Storm is still maintaining a slight advantage, especially with these Vikings soaking this top lane constantly, and Chen, of course, battling biceps in the bottom. But he's not even worried about Lili. Lili can't do enough damage to him. He's just pressing forward with the help of his giants, and it looks like Maelstrom has retreated as they realize they're losing the soak war, and the level 10 difference is going to happen very quickly, so they don't want to continue to try to contest Temple Storm because that's a losing battle. This allows Temple Storm to pick up the second tribute. Tributes are 1-to-1, and they're just going to go towards those bruisers and pick them up, and Arthlon is forced to use the go on Vikings to back on out. And there's that level 10. We see the Wandering Keg on Chen. We see the Jug of 1,000 Cups on Lili. And if you just look across the board, there's not a lot of stuns in general. So Lili really thrives when she's not interrupted from her jugs. But also Chen, he's the only one that can interrupt them because he can get forward with that flying kick and then pop that barrel to try to interrupt that. So that's a pretty interesting thing to look at in this game. And then Caffeine trying to bully back these Vikings, but as Balog comes back, you see how fast Arthlon is healing. It's actually just disgusting. Like, that is the power of the Viking Horde and the sustainability of the Lost Vikings. But, well, looking at the bottom lane, iDream will be bullied back. First aid has been used, and Chen will continue to clear up this wave. KO has that push power, but the third tribute of the game is actually spawning right here in the middle of the map. And this is where we might actually get to see the barrel come to fruition. The power of its zoning potential. We're going to hide these heroics. You guys can see him on the side. And Caffeine going to be the first one in here to try to contest this. And notice he just used the E to interrupt. He doesn't have to cast the W. Ooh, Eric loses his life. He actually got bullied back up here. We can actually just rewind to kind of capture and highlight that moment where the Lost Vikings, we knew they had to rotate down. So here it comes. The Lost Vikings, they have to rotate down, but Maelstrom is aware of this. So they throw 3 members up. They know the tribute's going to be okay for a moment, and they just do this to pick up that 1 kill on Eric. Just enough, and that's all they care about. They don't want to waste a lot of time chasing. This is just forcing the Vikings back out of the fight a little bit, and now we have King Caffeine and iDream that have been stalling during all this time, and they want to try to capitalize on this moment. So it's really nice heads-up play, really smart play by Maelstrom, and they're moving in with that Archon, using that Archon almost immediately, but the Maw will zone out 2 members there. The System Healing had to be used on KO, but the Strafe picks up the kill, and there is that barrel. It's zoning. It pushed K1 Pro back, and now it secures a kill on King Caffeine, and he's going forward on Biceps. The flying kick. He doesn't have enough mana to continue the combo, but he forced them back. Arthlon just uses Olaf to capture that tribute, while they know they force back Jaina and Lily, and they can immediately start on this boss. Very, very convincing fight. The barrel did what it had to do. It zoned perfectly, and Chen is just continuing to sustain like a boss. We can see Rhaegar going for the healing surge that just gives him more burst healing on his primary target. Very good on Chen, and Glaurung thinking about his level 13 talent for Chen Stormstout. Looking across the map, the boss is pressuring this bottom lane. The tribute count is 2 to 3, and this boss is just going to keep smacking away. He's a Slapmaster 2015, as we like to call him, and he still hasn't decided on that target. King Caffeine being the ultimate ward, he sees every member passing through here. And he's going to be able to report that information back to his base. So he waits for Olaf to get out of vision, and then he rotates up while he alerts his team, like, hey guys, let's try to steal this. Heroics that are on cooldown, Wandering Cake is one of them, so Chen can't force them away if he has to for another 15 seconds. But the Vikings are doing a good job holding. They do have those cooldowns to try to get out of this. They have go, 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 and they have, yes, that longboat. And the longboat raid is doing so much damage. King Caffeine in the front, a little bit overextended, but the Jugs are keeping him alive. Lily has that incredible healing capability when she's not interrupted, but are they a bit too separated? We see that Tempo Storm has managed to capture that boss, and they're pushing forward very hard here as they bully Maelstrom back out, and they picked up the single kill on Illidan. Bottom lane was defended successfully. The fort has very low health. This top boss might barely get this fort, probably not a lot more than that, but the curse is available on the map, and we can see that Maelstrom is aware of this. They do have both Biceps and Dunk Train. They're trying to keep Tempo Storm off it, but Dreadnought looks like he's going to be able to channel this. And yes, that is a curse in favor of Tempo Storm. They're going to get this bottom fort, and they're pushing that aggression forward with the Lost Vikings. We can see the Lightning Shield being used on Dread. They're trying to kill Dunk Train, but I think, yes, he is going to be able to get away. And in the top of the map, we can see this Metamorphosis going in onto Soldier. Soldier will get knocked back nicely by ETC, and they'll pick up a kill on the opposite side of the map. But they are going to have to go back to base, try to help defend. There's one Hearth coming out, trying to defend his back fort. Glaurung is making his way down. Even though they don't have their Vala, they have a lot of damage capability with these Giants and just the 4 members available. It is a 5v4 though, so this is definitely a peculiar situation. We see the Hearths going out, iDream defending the middle lane, and they managed to pick up that keep very early. Well, we can actually take a look at that level 13 and 16 talent as they've been finally picked up. So Chen opted for the Relentless, and he went for that combination attack. So remember I said, you can opt for a more bursty style on Chen, and it's typically going to be the Deadly Strike at 4 and the combination attack at 16. And this gives Chen just so much burst potential when he goes in with that first flying kick, and then of course the auto attack that follows, just allowing him to kind of burst down those targets. And especially when you're looking at things like Jaina. Jaina cannot run away from a Chen. Jaina, Nova, they have no escape, and they have very small health pools. And this makes Chen a really scary bully in those kind of situations. So that's really like a big, probably a very large motive when it came to Glaurung's decision making for this specific build instead of the more sustainable version that we talked about with the swift reflexes, which would help him mitigate damage from Illidan. But there's also no Vala. There's no Sergeant Hammer that he has to worry about. And that's why, you know, he went for this style. Now, they're going to pick up more bruisers. They're going to continue to rotate around the map. They have painted the map red, as Jester would like to say it. Only this pack of giants remains on the map. And looking at the cooldowns, another minute on the boss here, and it looks like Tempo Storm is looking to get aggressive as they take this very far forward watchtower and push on in. The boss did do work here. Between that curse and the boss in the top lane, this top keep took a lot of damage, and Glaurung is posed to just be obnoxious and in their face and make Maelstrom react to this. And the pokes are real for each team. They're just kind of throwing out their multi-shots. Glaurung is just tanking the shots from the keep and the tower. And Arthalon in the front line just dishing out that damage. There goes the stage dive from ETC. The jump does a nice job dodging his dash forward. The meta is there. The Maw connects with nothing. And, oh no, this is looking rough. The Ancestral Healing will connect with KO, keeping him alive, but Soldier is at his last leg, and escaping from an Illidan is not going to be in his cards. Arth is getting picked apart, and he will end up falling, and this is going to force Tempo Storm back. So this ploy to push forward and destroy this keep did in fact fail. They lost 2 members for nothing. Vikings have a very short cooldown, and individually that's their trait. But I don't know if it's going to be enough for them, so they're rotating down to take this camp. They're going to be able to take these giants between the 3 of them. The tribute does go to the side of Tempo Storm, so it's now 2-0 because Maelstrom, to Maelstrom, because Maelstrom has 2, and Tempo Storm used their 3 for that curse that just expired. And now Tempo Storm is getting into position for this boss. Now Vala does not respawn for 5 seconds. Not sure if Tempo Storm is going to be able to contest this, but they throw the Clairvoyance down, and Glaurung is looking to be as obnoxious as possible. He does have that barrel potential in 20 seconds, but that's not in time for this. It's not going to be available for the steal. Maelstrom gonna end up grabbing this boss and taking it away. Vikings also in the top. We see Eric is here, and he's going to be able to take that watchtower away. All 3 Vikings in the top part of the map, and Maelstrom is well aware of their presence, so that's why they are rotating up as so. Arth is going to have to be careful. We see the Oracle being popped, and they're going to start on that boss. Now, the Wandering Kick this time around is available. Bavary is asking in the chat, is this live? No, this is a replay. This is a solo cast replay doing Chen analysis. Now, the boss is going to be taking this back, bullying them back. And we can see the positioning in Arthalon. He's just constantly being annoying in the top part here. And they have successfully forced back Cloud9 Maelstrom. This is giving them a curse. They already have this boss in the bottom part of the map, smacking away, doing a ton of work. But here they go, and they're going to be able to pick up their own boss. Now, it looks like Illidan might try to contest this. Don't. Yeah, this is interesting. Stage dive a little bit late. iDream goes in there by himself, takes a ton of damage, and Chen is just going to use that flying kick to get in their face. Remember, he's got that combination attack, so he does have a fair amount of burst damage compared to what most Chen styles would have. And this is going to force out the response on this defense for this boss, because with the curse, the boss will get a ridiculous amount of efficiency. Actually, this catapult will actually probably take it out, but no, one shot coming out from the Soldier, cleaning it up. The boss still pushing down the top lane. 1 or 2 hits would be enough to take out this keep, and I think he will get it. The shielding from Cassadar might be a little bit too much, and yeah, I think it actually will. 1, 2, 3, but the shields again, and yeah, the keep is going to stay alive during all this. It's allowed Tempo Storm to get aggressive and come in onto these knights. They're going to try to grab these knights, use them to keep some presence in the middle lane, and we can see the Vikings Arthalon capturing that. K1 Pro is going to find him, and that's going to force him back. Again, that watchtower being held by K1 Pro, and that's going to force our Vikings player back. Bruiser's still available, and we're just going to speed this up a little bit as there's going to be a little bit of dancing back and forth at the end of the curse. It looks like Maelstrom wants to get aggressive here, but I don't know if they actually will. Oh, looks like they certainly will, forcing Temple Storm back. And they're just going to use that bullying presence. Now, Temple Storm, no, they're not feeling it. They don't want to get back in there. They're just going to start cleaning up those bruisers the moment they can. And look at this. We see Eric, the scout. He has a faster movement speed. Go was used. He's actually throwing them forward. So he's sending Eric in, using jump for the other Vikings to try to get them out, but he manages to get a ninja on the keep. Now, Balog and Olaf will both fall, but Eric in their base ruined that keep. Well worth the sacrifice, and he's able to hearth on back home to rejoin his allies. Now, of course, one Viking certainly not as powerful as 3. Got to wait on the death timers for the other 2, but it's going to be a little while before the next curse actually spawns, or the next tribute spawns in the map. And the tribute count has been reset 0-0. We see Soldier. He's actually probably going to show himself here. Yeah, he's going to show himself, put a little aggression here, and then maybe Hearth back. Just going to take out both of these at 650 experience a pop, and then he's going to Hearth home because he has to help with this defense. So we got that experience, which allowed them to get 20, where we do see Hardened Shield. We got the Storm Shield, the Ragnarok and Roll, and the double Bolt Storm, but he needs to be there to help defend. Giants just plowed through that bottom fort. Every fort in this game has been removed on the side of Maelstrom. Temple Storm just holding their middle fort at this point in time, which is still nice and healthy. But they're looking to get this aggression on. Now, Vala did get that Hearth. She bolt forward in the Flying Kick, but again, the dimensional shift from Tassadar makes him near impossible to kill. We saw the one Jug come out from Lily trying to heal, but look at this. The lead. The way Glowering was leading forward to try to get Dunk Train, but then King Caffeine bullying him back, and the damage coming out, the shields are just there, and the heals Tassadar gets out by the skin of his teeth. And now the next tribute has spawned, and Maelstrom has just hit level 20. We're gonna see the Jug of 1,000,000 cups. We've got the Bolt of the Storm, we've got the Twilight Archon, and then 2 more bolts. But look at the boss timers. 30 seconds. First tribute. iDream getting attacked already. This boss timer, 1 minute 30 seconds. Okay, there is the stage dive initiation by King Caffeine. Going with ETC, this barrel was used very almost prematurely, it seemed. And so that utility is off cooldown for quite a while. The Jug's going in, but the Ancestral connects with KO at the last possible minute. The Maw doing work, and the back line of this Vala is just burning through Dunk Train. But Dunk Train, he's got the sustainability with Dimensional Shift, the full race car style. Biceps is so low, and they just want that kill. Glaurung goes in and does get it. The extra bonus damage he has with this talent, or the talents from 4 and 13, working out in this game. And it's very, very back and forth. King Caffeine, they're going to have to chase the last 2 remaining members here of Tempo Storm. Glaurung is incredibly low. Dreadnought trying to hearth out. Glaurung, just a sliver of health remains, but the 20% movement speed that he gets from the talent is helping him get out. Dread is found by iDream, and he is running. He puts the Healing Ward in a great spot to try to stay alive, and meanwhile, Dreadnought is able to mount up and try to keep getting out of the situation. Dread still running from iDream. There's K1 Pro. He jukes, he runs, he dodges, he heals, he throws, but he has no mana left. That is his final heal. He pops Storm Shield, he gets back into wolf form, and then he turns around, and he's going to be able to get just out of range. The dash forward's not going to be enough, but the Metamorphosis will pick up the kill. Glaurung made it home. Dreadnought stalled for a long time, and during all of this, this boss has just been sitting there. If they didn't stall like that, that would have given a huge opportunity for Illidan, Jaina, and ETC to pick up this boss, no problem. They had a 3-member advantage to the 2 of very low members of Tempo Storm, and Glaurung is now just patiently sitting here and waiting. He drew out a lot of time from ETC. He went back home, he healed the full, and he just came here, and now he's just sitting here in this bush, waiting and watching all of these members of Tempo Storm. There's 4 out of the 5 here taking this boss. You notice the second that they move towards him, he backs up for safety. But now that it's done, he goes in, he leaps in with his flying kick, and he uses the barrel to bully them off, and he's able to get all of them off and steal the boss. Now he pops that hardened shield to mitigate through the damage, and he jukes them with the flying kick, getting back. And now we have that 20% movement speed that we talked about on Chen. That is the Brewmaster's balance, and he's so hard to catch. He's going back in their base, and what is there? His team is just around the corner capturing those giants, so he's going to be able to get to safety with the additional mobility, and he's already stolen that boss. During this time, the tribute has spawned on the other side of the map. We see Dreadnought making his way to that tribute. Tribute count is 1 in 0, so it's not the end of the world, but this boss is already smacking on their core. And with this, they actually captured the other boss. I actually missed that in all of the analysis. I was actually so excited, so I have to rewind a little bit. But they actually captured the top boss during all that commotion. And I'm the worst caster ever for not emphasizing that, because that's what this video is all about. God darn it, guys! Rip me! Alright, I'm just going to keep rewinding slowly but surely, and then we'll fast forward to see the exact point at which the boss was being taken. And yeah, just this will be the last rewind. Oh my goodness. Alright, yes. So, this is happening, and this is happening. Boss is picked up here for Tempo Storm. Boss is stolen here from Chen. Back-to-back bosses. Yeah, that's what I wanted to emphasize. Go me. Fast forward to that moment where Chen does just barely survive. Very good. These giants being picked up, and guess what? The bosses are slowly making their way. Boss number 2 picked up by Chen. The steal. Boss number 1 picked up by Tempo Storm. They are going to collapse on this core. And let me tell you something. They don't even have to push forward with this boss. These bosses can do it on their own. But they've got a boat. They've got giants. They've got double bosses. And that core is going to fall oh so very quickly. Really cool stuff by Chen. The way that he stalled out all that time. The way that he just kept the attention of Tempo Storm for such a long period of time is cool. But he stayed alive, he survived, and he went in, and he did a very decisive steal on the boss, which gave a guaranteed win to Tempo Storm. Because the double boss pickup at the same time, I don't care who you are, you cannot defend that, especially if you have 5 members and giants pushing on your core. And you saw how fast that core went down, with Tempo Storm not even really putting any focus on it themselves. They just let the bosses go to work. And that was a really cool game. Now, this was in the grand finals of the Ding It Championship last week, and it was some really impressive Chen play. Now, got to give a lot of credit to Europe. They've been playing Chen for a while, and he's been almost extinct here in North America. But after seeing stuff like this, I'm really sold on the idea of Chen, at least on Cursed Hollow. Now, Chen has a ton of bullying ability and a ton of survivability, and just his presence of getting in your face is really quite good. But I mean, I watched this, and I couldn't believe my eyes. So that was game 1, right? That was game 1. We're going to be doing a second game, and it's actually a full-blown salty run back. So I'm just kind of looking at the replays now. You can look at my replay file, and you can also look at the cat as she just leaped up onto my chair to say hello. So say hi to the cat. Looking at the replay file, we can see 22-minute game, spoilers, and it's actually played on Cursed Hollow. Well, Tempo Storm Chen 2, that I call it, that's actually on Cursed Hollow, and I don't want you guys to get the spoilers on the duration, so we're going to load that up incognito. And this is, of course, a rematch. So it's the full-on salty run back. Cloud9 decided, no, we want to take you back to that map because we can beat you on that map, they say. And I have to make sure this isn't... I think I loaded up the same game. I think I loaded up last game's game. Rip me. You guys get cat cam? Yes, I did, in fact, load up the wrong game. The cat is pleased. You might not think it. She is pleased right now. She is purring ferociously. Oh. Alright. Now we can actually look at game number 2. Wait, okay, the compositions are different. I was going to say, I thought they had different compositions. And Maelstrom has mixed up. Tempo Storm looks pretty darn similar. On the side of Tempo Storm, they have a very unique composition with no, as you would consider them, big-name healers. They're just rocking the Tassadar Tyrande. But they've got the ETC Illidan Sonya. So this is like super dive in your face. Maelstrom has liked to throw King Caffeine on Sonya for quite a while now because they like this style capability where you have the Metamorphosis, you have the leap there from Sonya, and you have the stage dive for ETC. But on the side of Tempo Storm, we see the Rhaegar, the Lost Vikings, the Chen, the Zagara, and Vala. Pretty darn close to what we saw last game. Actually, I think it's the same. And we can pull up these talents to just kind of observe the build and the differences of the build. So for Chen, he's sticking to that Regen Master level 1. And looking across the map, Biceps getting real aggressive with his friends. And they're going to force KO to just hearth back home. Chen sitting in the top lane. He's decided to swap it up. He's not going to go to the bottom lane this game. He's going to go top. And who's he going to find? He's going to find Illidan, where it's going to be a nice little dance between the two of them. We're gonna speed this up a little bit as the game does progress a bit slowly at the start of the game, especially once, especially this is like a salty run back, so it's pretty similar in terms of what the strategies are going to be, at least on the side of Tempo Storm, based on the success of the last game. If it ain't fixed, don't broke it, right? Well, Arth just barely not getting hit by the Lunar Flare. Yeah, this is a little bit in fast motion. Dunk Train gonna barely survive. A lot of close calls, but not a lot of action. 0-0 kills at this point in the game, and that Lunar Flare dealing out a decent amount of damage. They do have Tyrande for the additional vision in this game, and they have Tassadar, so it's 2 healing wards. And looking at their composition at level 4, which we will get to pretty quickly, I think that we'll actually end up seeing Amplified Healing on at least Sonya for the additional survivability, unless they opt for just full-on Slam Style for the additional damage, because it's kind of what it's all about. I don't exactly remember the styles, but we'll see when we get there. For being hit by Tempo Storm, and with that, we can see a variation on the Chen style already, which is going to be the Swift Reflexes. So, since there isn't not really that target, there isn't that Jaina in this game that you can just punish for being super squishy and like have no mobility. We actually see Chen going for Swift Reflexes instead of that additional damage provided by Deadly Strike. Deadly Strike, of course, you know, that's 50% additional damage on the flying kick. So it's a bit of a more tanky style, especially considering how much they have this, how much dive the enemy team is coming in with them. And when you have to consider the damage output of both Illidan and Sonya, having Swift Reflexes will help him mitigate one auto attack every 4 seconds, and that could definitely make or break his life. And we do see that Vikings, one Viking has fallen, so that's just 0.25 kills in favor of Maelstrom. It doesn't mean a whole lot when it boils down to it. Glaurung just gonna drink some brew, deal with iDream. He doesn't really care. He just wants to stop this, be annoying, fall back to his tower, drink some brew, and then be annoying. And they're doing a good job just stalling this out, while the Vikings continue to be obnoxious. Now, King Caffeine going to try to punish Olaf for being alone, but the middle lane is they're also forcing the soak here from these two members just for the Vikings. And they've now abandoned this. Dreadnought is going to be able to capture this. They learned in the last game they lost a bit of experience in that first tribute because the Viking soak, and they learned from that mistake. So they're really respecting the viability of the Viking soak in multiple lanes, and they're responding to that by giving up the tribute very early without wasting their time. With this, though, we see Biceps is actually making his way back, and Glaurung seems to be well aware of this. We see the far sight coming out from Rhaegar, revealing that they potentially would like to steal the Giants, but Tempo Storm defends their back mark camp, not wanting to give that up because that forces a reaction. That forces you back to your back wall to make sure you defend that. And we do see the Vikings are just continuing to push forward and be obnoxious. And our Chen player, I mean, Hunter's Mark, can kind of challenge him, but the positioning on Glaurung is just very obscure. He expects the Lunar Flare, so he walks up and around. Very well played by Glaurung, respecting the Lunar Flare's position would be in the optimal pattern, and he does get out of the way of it. Dread is sitting on that tribute, and it looks like they're going to get the second tribute for free in this game, and there it is picked up, and they're diving forward onto King Caffeine, unloading as much damage as they can, but of course, the heals are real, having both the Tassadar and Tyrande. Looking again at the Chen build, we see Brewmaster's balance in this game once more. Now that's the 20% move speed when you're below the threshold of 50 brew, and then the additional health regen when you're above the 50 threshold. Super powerful talent, really cool utility. And we do see Soldier and Arthalon just kind of bullying back these giants, going to pick them up. We got Cloud9 Maelstrom picking up their bruisers, and the far side from Rhaegar is going to reveal their positioning. So they're well aware that that is where they were, what they picked up. Caffeine considering this, and Chen just continuing to soak this bottom lane, being obnoxious. It looks like Tempo Storm is actually going to give up this next tribute because Chen doesn't seem to have any inclination to actually leave his lane. But when it boils down to it, actually, he's got 2 members of Maelstrom with him, and this gives Tempo Storm a bit of an advantage. So they could leave one Viking in this lane and pressure forward, but they probably already have that advantage because, again, Sonya and Tyrande is still in this bottom lane protecting. We do have the Vikings getting bullied back by Tassadar, but look at this. I mean, Dread is just constantly putting a presence on that tribute. They want to force ETC, they want to force someone to stick around, and they have these 2 members still in the bottom lane. So we see that the Vikings are now capitalizing. They're like, all right, you guys want to stay down there. Let's move in. Let's try to capture this. Biceps can stall for a little while, but against 4 members, I don't know if they can do it. As Glaurung does leave his lane, this is because both teams have level 10, and he knows he doesn't have that global presence available. He wants to move forward and see what he can do. The curse is picked up by Tempo Storm, and once again, Wandering Cake is the option. Pick up the Glaurung, who is going to get decimated because we talked about the power of something like Relentless and how strong it gets. Well, 1 Lunar Flare was enough to pick up that kill. Ancestral really on point by Dreadnought, keeping Soldier alive, making this only a 1 death scenario, and they do have that curse in their favor, but losing a life very early in their curse is far from optimal. Now, this bottom lane is not being defended, so these guys are getting a lot of work done, but in the middle lane, it's, I mean, there's defense. Illidan keeping that top lane pushed back the best he can, even though the Vikings are there, and now that Chen has respawned, maybe Tempo Storm can use these last 20 seconds to get a little bit aggressive. And, well, they're going to use it to potentially start this boss. And, well, we can see that Maelstrom is well aware of this. They see the positioning of the Vikings. There's tons of fruit spread here from KO's Zagara, which is nice. And Tempo Storm opts to back up off the boss. They don't want to risk it. Caffeine has cleaned up this bottom lane where the curse was pushing. And we see the Lunar Flare is dodged by the jump of the Lost Vikings. Strafe going down, doing so much damage to K1 Pro's Tassadar. And we see oh my goodness, I actually have to watch that again. The Vikings, they went forward. They predicted when the Tassadar would expire from the dimensional shift, and they just hit spin and win the Q available on Lost Vikings to eliminate him. So yes, that'll happen in just a moment. We're inching forward. Vikings dodge that Lunar Flare with jump. They push forward. The strafe dishing out all that damage, and we will see the Vikings position themselves forward for body blocking. Second expires, spin and win, eliminating him very quickly. That barrel is just bullying the Illidan back the best it can, and the flying kick doesn't have the combination attack this time, but it's still just barely enough to pick up the kill, the edge on that breath. And now we have that Longboat Raid doing a lot of damage to Dunk Train, forcing him back. Flying kick goes in on Dunk. Lunar Flare connects, and the bullying of ETC should actually be enough to keep Chen alive. If ETC can do this properly, yes. He's going to be able to keep Dunk alive. Nice teamwork, nice peel provided by ETC, and that is going to be the first fort of the game, dropping here in the top lane of Cloud9 Maelstrom. And this is going to be a boss. I mean, they move in, they're going to pick up this boss, and just handily and very safely pick it up, and it looks like Maelstrom's response is, hey, let's go get our boss. They're going to be getting their boss, let's do that. As soon as this expires, we see the Hearth coming out, and then Maelstrom, well, they're going to start on it. The Tempo Storm, what is their response? They're just going to push. They're going to say, all right, we can't get there in time, let's just push. We've got Zagara soak in mid. She's keeping that wall safe, giving the ammo a little bit of breathing room to maybe rejuvenate itself, and Glaurung is going to start on these 2 giants. Now, Vikings are slowly pushing this back. They're going to get this boss some breathing room, get it to the wall, and get it wailing away as soon as possible. And meanwhile, the boss of Maelstrom is going to be obnoxious, but it has to go through this pretty much unscathed towers. And look at these. They're just going to grab these giants with the boss, back away, and then go push mid. Because they're like, look, they just walk back. Because they know Maelstrom has to defend the top. They know there's actually just nothing they can do about this. They have to clean up both of those mercenary camps as quickly as possible, and they do it without losing a lot of damage. But as a result, they manage to power through this wall. They're going to get the well, and we do have Vala protecting this bottom fort, which will definitely not fall to the boss. Lunar Flare scouting them out. Nothing too crazy happening right now. Just kind of a scout war. The Roaches fighting by their lonesome, and this is going to allow Biceps to go in there. Does Tempo Storm capitalize? This takes them a little while to blow these up, but do they try to steal this? Glaurung, looks like he's feeling it, and he does go in. He forces him off with the barrel, just bullying Illidan and everyone away, picking up his bruises. He says, no, these are ours. Get out of my jungle. And he uses the barrel in a very convincing fashion to pick that up. Now the tributes, we did have the 3-0 in the start of the game going to Tempo Storm, but they have been reset, and Maelstrom will be taking the 4th tribute of the game. In the middle of the map, teams will be colliding a little bit. Now we do have those giants pushing down bottom, so Maelstrom has to consider that as a threat because they don't want to lose that bottom fort just for nothing, really, because those giants will get a lot done. Already taking down the tower, but we can see the Archon being used. The Ancestral will connect with Dreadnought, and the Maw picks up several members of Cloud9. That's a perfect time to pick up the Longboat raid, go in, unleash as much damage as possible, and the strafe in the backline is going to be enough to pick up that first kill. iDream, he's taken big, heavy damage. Lunar Flare connecting with just the Longboat, but this will allow them to push forward, and meanwhile these giants have been sieging this fort. They powered through that wall, they powered through the minions, and they're getting the damage done. Middle fort gonna collapse, and Tempo Storm's not done yet. They're pushing forward. It's a 5v4. They have that advantage. They're gonna pick up the bruisers. Tribute spawned 1-0 in favor of Maelstrom, but giants still being obnoxious at bottom. And Soldier is getting really cheeky, but Glaurung is here if absolutely needed for him to go in. And looking at the heroics, well, everything is on cooldown except the meta and the stage dive. So definitely an advantageous position in terms of heroics on the side of Maelstrom. But with the Sentinel being used, Arthlon will just then wait after it passes, start the cap here on the tribute, and be nice and happy. And these giants have done a lot. I mean, this fort nearly at its last leg in the middle. I mean, Tempo Storm has that talent advantage, so we can look at the Chen talent in this game. He's actually opting for pressure points. So last game, that's when we saw the combination attack and the Deadly Strike. Of course, combination attack is picked up at level 16, and Deadly Strike picked up at level 4. Pairing that, you get the more versatile, but in this game, the difference being the swift reflexes and pressure point. That gives him the more sustainability and the more control over the battlefield, because a 90% slow for 1 second is pretty darn okay. Once upon a time, it was a root, but not today, my friends. Not today. It is now a 90% slow for whatever reason, but it's okay. It's still quite good. Now, we can look at the bottom lane. This bottom fort has, it's pretty much going to follow the Biceps no matter what he does. He could just kind of face melt it, literally, and take that out. And the giants are being picked up by Maelstrom, but does Glaurung steal these too? A little bit over, but yeah, Glaurung is going to do it. iDream could have probably stayed on the point and capped it since Glaurung got positioned in weirdly, but no, that's not going to be the case. So another steal on a mercenary camp, constantly controlling the map. I mean, this boss was picked up by Maelstrom. That's the only thing they've controlled. Another minute on that boss. Tribute count 1-1. Tempo Storm will be stalled out by the stage dive and the side storm, and that barrel is zoning out caffeine for a long time. Biceps is all by himself. That barrel provided so much zoning, and we see that healing ward is just getting so much efficiency. The heroic leap goes in, they have the metamorphosis, and that picks up the kill onto the Rhaegar, so there are no heals available, but the Maw provides so much time by taking out the 2 healers from the battlefield while splitting them up, and then Glaurung is going to go for it, picking up that kill on Tyrande. The Vikings, they took no damage because they were in the Longboat raid, and they're going to do their best to trade out King Caffeine. So yes, they remove Sonya, and now they're chasing K1 Pro. They have Go, 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 and of course, Eric has the additional movement speed, but iDream, maybe he's the target. The Roaches, the Hydras, are they enough? And no, he will manage to get out of here. But during this time, the boss has spawned, and Maelstrom is making their way over. Glaurung gonna start it by himself. He can drink. He can mitigate that damage with his brew, and we see that Zagara and the Vikings are making their way over to assist. Meanwhile, looking at the death timers, 3 seconds to Rhaegar is up, 10 seconds to Vala is up, and it's pretty much the same on the opposing side for Maelstrom. So it will be a 5v5, but Maelstrom has a bit of ground to catch up in terms of the race for bosses. They're just now getting there. iDream going to start it, and the Clairvoyance, the far side of Rhaegar, gets there at the last possible second. I mean, it just unveils his position, and we see they're starting this, but guess what? Guess who left early? Glaurung. Glaurung left that boss early, because remember last game where he stole the boss? He's going to try it again. And what I said in the cast is fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. And they're aware. Biceps is aware, but is it enough? He's diving forward. The boss is falling, and he's going to use that barrel, and he's going to steal the boss again. There's no way he'll survive this, right? Wrong. Ancestral Healing connecting with Glaurung, keeping him alive. There goes that Metamorphosis. So the stage dive is going to be a little bit too late. Soldier does fall to the Heroic Leap, but there are two bosses marching in. That mob pulling in K1 Pro's Archon. The Longbow Raid did a ton of damage to King Caffeine, killing him, the ETC player killing him, and Caffeine, maybe he's next on that menu. The Go trying to pick him off. Doesn't look like it's going to be enough, but guess what? This boss is already smacking away at this top fort. This boss is making his way to the bottom fort, and there are 4 members of Tempo Storm pushing in, and they just picked up a curse, which conveniently spawned right near that bottom boss. The convenience factor, the double boss push, once again is working out for them, and they're putting this aggression on the boss, wailing away. They can't even stop the top boss. How are they going to stop this push? Both of the keeps have fallen in Tempo Storm. I mean, you can't stop. You just can't. You can't do it. Oh, it's so good. The Norse Force going off on Vikings, giving them that shield, that 1-minute cooldown, and this core falls so very quickly. 2 forts remain for Tempo Storm, and they are going to take a quick, decisive victory. Really cool stuff by Tempo Storm. Some of the most satisfying games I've ever seen with Chen that period. And to St. Patrick's Day, to Brew, to my Ragnaros mug, Ragnarok and Roll is on my brain, I suppose. Really fun stuff. So shout outs to them for taking the Ding It Championship last week. Congratulations to Tempo Storm on their win. They took home that $1,000 first place. $500 goes to Maelstrom though. And of course, this was of course a rebroadcast. All the official broadcasts for that you can check out on dingit.tv/SolidJakeGG. All the VODs are there. So of course that's me and Kubi. That's our first initial reaction to all this happening, and it was a really exciting cast. So this was obviously kind of like analysis and looking at it once again and kind of just pointing out why the Chen styles are different. But definitely encourage you guys to check out those casts because those games were super fun. On that note though, yeah, that's Chen Stormstout, and we can take a look at the talents just one more time, just kind of brushing it over to make sure you guys are completely happy with what we saw. And we saw Regen Master both games, and the one difference that we saw in each game was actually just we saw the Swift Reflexes for the more sustained style, and Swift Reflexes was paired with Pressure Point. So this is the build that you see for the more sustainable Chen. But if you want to go for a more bursty Chen, well, that's when you pick up the Deadly Strike for the 50% more damage, and you pick up the combination attack. This is something that is used responsively to stuff like Nova and Jaina. You can just really annihilate them very quickly. And guys, you're asking in the chat, when do those VODs go up? I don't know if they'll ever be on YouTube. I have to figure that out because I don't have a local recording of them. So if there's a way for me to upload them from Ding It, that will happen in about a week. But I don't know for sure if that'll ever happen. But you can watch them on the Ding It platform, and they are there immediately after the broadcast. So those matches are all available to watch right now, again, on dingit.tv/SolidJakeGG. That will probably be my last broadcast on Ding It ever. Moving forward, I'm just going to stick to Twitch. I've got a lot of cool stuff in the works, so my Twitch channel here is going to be the focus for everything, and of course my YouTube being focused as well.